All right, here we go. Overdrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's going on?
How we feeling today, boys?
I got to tell you, Bud, like, Hazy, I love you, but I had the pleasure. Our return monitor, I could see you doing some work before you came on the show, and man,
Yeah.
you love, like, you're just dialed in on all levels, man. Yeah, I love seeing it. I
Oh, is that
love
right?
seeing.
Okay.
Stephen A. Smith over there.
Oh,
I love it.
man, does
we
this
couldn't hear
guy...
it, though. We couldn't hear it, though.
Noodles,
We could
I
see the
guarantee what he
actions and the
does,
hand
like,
motions.
before he
Yeah.
goes on TV, he sits by himself and he, like, talks back to himself to see if it works. Like, I could just see it all
I
playing
do
out.
actually do that a lot. I do the preparation.
Yeah.
Where am I going to take this, right? Like, this is the thing
Yeah.
about doing our show. We all get asked this all the time. It's
Is there
100% spontaneous. Yeah,
Yes.
well, like, we're prepared, but we don't know where it's going to go. You have no idea where it's going to go. I don't know what you two are going to say at any given moment and where it's going to take us. But if you do TV hits like we all do, generally it's planned in terms of what the questions are going to be,
Yes.
where you're going to take it, what
Yeah.
topics
You're not
gonna
going
hit
into
on.
a blind where you're like, I have no idea what's up here.
Right, exactly. So I was doing some That's Hockey hits with Gino. I was doing a Hot or Not with Sarah Davis, and I was all over the place.
Yeah,
talking
I got
about
into a
everything.
dangerous game when I first started out doing TV on the panel. I wrote out every single word that I was going to
Yeah, I just said
And
the
I
same
remem-
thing, and it's
Dude, but the thing is, once you do that, you are committed to each letter and each word. And if
just
there's a bump
awkward.
on the road, you are so screwed. And it's like you got to pick up a paper and look at it. And you're like, what? 'Cause I worked with Mike Johnson early on, and I'm like, dude, because I used to look down at his paper, and there was nothing on it. I go, how do you know what you're going to say? He goes, I just let it fly, bud. I don't know what you think you're doing. And I was like, man, that's impossible.
yeah.
Then I started working with
I-
Pooley, and Pooley no one was more prepared than Pooley. Notes on this, notes on that. And then I looked at my grubby paper, and there was nothing on it. Nothing.
Roles reversed over time.
Role reversal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
It takes. You're right, though. I was the same way. I first started, you're like writing every word and what you want to say,
Yeah,
and if you
yeah.
don't get to it, you feel like you failed. So I got some great advice from our boss Ken Volden early on. He said, get your bullet points out. Like he said, write what you want to say in a bullet point, like just a little nugget, and you look at it and you go, okay, that's where you got to go. But it's a work in progress, as we all. I mean, Hayes, you're a veteran broadcaster, but on the TV side, you're still learning that.
Oh,
that,
absolutely, man. Absolutely.
That type of stuff.
I'll say this, too. It is difficult being the other analyst when the other guy's committed to script. You're so nervous of throwing him off because the guy, you can tell he's reading and you want to jump in.
I'm like, that's his deal. I look away.
You can't look at the guy because if you stagger him, he will look at you like, what are you doing? I'm on paragraph 2. Like, you can't ask me that question.
Yeah. I think
now.
You'll rattle them, though.
You'll rattle the
sometimes
guy.
Duffy will like have a real busy time, and he'll be like looking around trying to, and I'm like, I make sure I look away, so I'm like, you're not talking to me, dude, because I'm not answering that. So I'll literally look at Dregs. I'll look sideways. I'm like, take it that way, bud, because I'm not. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Once I'm done my thing, I'm out to lunch.
But Duffy he wants you to bring it back to him. Like he'll point to, like he'll say, okay,
dude,
done or no.
If
like
you start talking too much,
drives
he's
them
like, it's Duffy time again, man.
Yeah.
Get that thing back.
I made that
right
mistake. Remember when we did the panel a couple months ago? I had like a 90-second answer out of the gate, and I could tell I jammed him up, and he had other things planned. And I had to apologize. I think I was like, sorry, man, I won't do that again. I get it. I understand where you're going with this. But, we've been hit. There's a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on in pro sports, right? There's a lot going on. Super Bowl week. You got all these rumors in the NBA. Everyone in the NBA is going to get traded in the next 24 hours.
Dude, isn't it crazy how the NBA of all the leagues, it's almost like they look at their roster 2 weeks before the deadline and they're like, well, obviously we can't trade that guy. And then right up to the deadline, they're like, that guy's out the door if we can make it happen.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah,
like
it is.
Kevin Durant, we're on Kevin Durant watch.
Yes.
This guy apparently is going to get traded and maybe.
But
back
I thought
to Golden
someone
State.
was on Durant watch going to Phoenix to add to Durant and Booker.
Yes.
Who was it?
Well, it's Butler that's supposed to go there.
Yeah,
So
it's Jimmy Butler out to Arizona to add to KD and Booker. And I'm like, no, that might be pretty cool. And now all of a sudden, KD's on his way out.
It's crazy, man.
The
It's
NBA
crazy.
is bonkers, though. I mean, they swing big, though. A lot of times, though, the players drive the bus in that. But you are seeing, with that trade the other day, it's ownership trying to grab some of the power back, saying, no. We write the checks here. It's our show, not your show. So interesting to see.
Big time, man. Because KD's name's out there. Draymond Green's name is out there. I saw someone post something that from the last 10 years, there's only 4 players in the NBA that are still on their respective teams. That'd be an interesting practice in pro sports. Like in the NHL, obviously you think of Sid, you think of Ovi, Malkin, Letang. There's 3 guys on Pittsburgh, actually, that have been there for almost 20 years.
Well, 2 of them are on Golden State, aren't they? Draymond and Steph?
Draymond and Steph. And Giannis was in Milwaukee probably as a rookie a decade ago. And there was someone else I can't remember, I think down in Dallas. But point being is there's so much turnover, constantly. And that's why I guess you're somewhat desensitized to all the different rumors that could be out there because they do happen. And once Luka got dealt, it's like, all right, anyone could be available and maybe anything happens. So we've obviously got that. We're tracking that. And it was a crazy night in the NHL last night. The Leafs pick up a win. That was a fun game in Calgary again, man. Stay in Alberta.
Excuse me, pardon me. Except the first period with the nonsense that's been going on.
So stupid.
Dude,
with all the different,
I'm sorry, Noodles. I know you're a goalie hugger.
I know.
And I love the goalies, too. And I don't want to see them run over. But some of this stuff is a joke, man. You fart on a guy in the crease and the ref's like, no way, interference. Give me a break.
I do want to see that review.
Give me a break.
I want to hear about that review.
A drag bunt through the crease.
Yes.
That I want to see happen.
Just eats
the ref just goes, Ichiro drag bunt, no goal.
Jonas Siegel
Wes
drag bunt.
McCauley. Wes McCauley.
That's the worst one of all.
Jonas
Siegel, if the ref points up to him in the presser and goes, Siegel drag bunt.
Yeah,
no
you can't
goal.
do that. Was that Wes McCauley, Noodles? It said you can't do that, and then made the
you
call.
can't That's a thing. Yeah, he called our game last night, but it just if you need that referee that has the the big personality to call a Jonas Siegel drag bunt for goaltender interference. But
it's just too much.
Guys.
If there was a call in Washington this year that the Leafs, and I give their video guy credit because he seems to know what he's doing, he gets it right every time. But if skates click and then there's a shot from the point, give me a break, man. And I don't want to go completely slap shot old school on this where it's you have to bury the goalie for goaltender interference. I don't think so. But, Jamie, there was a game in Nashville the other night. Drake Batherson got called for goalie interference. I'm like, what the hell's this call? There's no way he could have pushed the goalie in. So, other than the first period last night, it was a great hockey game. Great for Maple Leaf fans.
Thoroughly entertaining.
Sorry,
Awesome
Calgary. Leafs Nation invaded you again, and they dominated the building. They're ripping through the West Coast.
That was my whole point a couple days ago. To me, that looked more. There was more fans in Calgary than there was in Edmonton. That was I played there. I knew that, right? That was the thing. And I played there in the early 2000s when Calgary was still turning over. It's a transient city, right? Oil and gas, so people moved there. So a lot of times we'd play Vancouver, we'd play Edmonton, we'd play Toronto, a lot of these teams, and half the building would be full of their fans because it just, a lot of people would move to Calgary to work. But watching that, it's an atmosphere. Again, you come back, you just remove it as a fan. It's exciting. That's the one thing. You got rival chants, everything. To me, I thought it was a good game. You're right. The first period was nonsense. I hate the goalie challenges, all of that type of stuff. But there was some... to me, there were some good performances last night.
Well, that's what sticks out. And what there was offense. That is the biggest contrast between this week and last week with the Leafs. When the Leafs were losing, they were losing 3-0 and 2-1, and they looked like they were skating in mud, and they had no opportunities, and they had and it wasn't exactly accurate. They had some chances, but the power play was anemic. The big boys just went cold. and now they've gotten out to Alberta and they've come alive. Like they've completely come alive. And, Nylander's up to 33 goals on the season. He's second in the league. He's 4 back at Draisaitl. This guy's in a rocket hunt. Like, he's in the hunt for the rocket now. Yeah. And the goals he scored last night were all different. Like, one was an empty net, clearly. The first one, the power play got clicking last night. Fine. It was a beautiful play and pass by Nyes. But he gets it off. Right, and that's what we've been talking about forever. Put Matthews on one side, Willie on the other, create space and let them shoot. And then he's got a 3-on-1, and it was like he was out there with
himself.
2 beer league players. He's like, I'm not passing to you.
Guys, just quickly, a point about the power play, and I don't want to cause problems, and I'm not doing anything stupid, but Morgan Rielly was back out there, and it seemed like it clicked there for a minute. What do you care about moving forward? Because there's one guy that wasn't on it clearly, and it was Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
So, but if I'm the coach, I'm like, we've been trying for a long time to get this thing cooking. It's going the same units that were in Calgary. You're going out there in Vancouver, but there's a lot of red tape.
That'll get spicy. That'll get spicy.
But I'm just saying, what was wrong with what the power play was doing last night?
It looked great.
Thank you.
Great. And the common denominator was Marner wasn't playing.
That's
it wasn't
right.
just because he wasn't playing. It clicked.
No,
it should have clicked months ago.
Right. But
still.
Maybe if you just it's just one of those things where he's such a fantastic player and a lot of things run through him. Maybe it was easier to accept what the role was on the power play because it's just like somebody else, people talk about us when we walk in the room, we take up a lot of oxygen, or possibly me or you, Hayes. But that's what, it's just, he's such a guy that commands the puck, and it's like it's got to run through. It's almost like everybody just simplified and said, this is what I got to do, and it might work if we all put it together. Everyone just simplifying.
Yeah.
It was. Now, let's keep in mind, every team's going to be different. You're going to be playing... Vancouver might have a different penalty kill setup than Seattle, than Calgary. I didn't think Calgary had much juice last night. That was their 3rd game in 4 nights. I didn't love their goaltender at all. He's been unbelievable. I didn't think, as much as Nylander, that's a great shot. He's going to make that save. Same thing on McMahon. I know there's 2-on-1s and 3-on-1s, but when you're a defenseman, Hayes, you talk about it. Well, you're taking away the pass, so the shot's the goalie. You've got to make those saves. Like, I didn't think, but that's not anything to do with more just, I think the Leafs created these chances. They scored, good on them. But on the other side, I didn't love Calgary's, their pushback, their effort. And maybe that's just a, combination of the Leafs just squashed them that way.
Yeah.
But that being said, the power play, I have a tough time with that. Mitch Marner's a power play
I get it, and Joe
specialist.
from the Bridge just chimed in. It was just a one-night observation. Joe from the Bridge came off the top rope, and he said, excuse me, but they were 2 for 2 in Edmonton, and Marner was on it. But like I said, it was one-night analysis. Yep. That's it. It was a one-shot deal.
Let's everyone just relax. We all love Mitch. We're all looking forward to seeing him get back in the lineup tomorrow night. All right.
Well, I hope he's all right. Is that a sick? I don't like. He played
the
other night.
It was, they said upper body, I believe, right? I'm getting them mixed up because Sid was upper body. Crosby's dealing with something and being evaluated, and he got hit and left the game, but he returned last night.
Dude, if either of these guys can't play Saturday or whenever their next game is, I'd be like, wherever you think you're going Monday, you're not going.
Well, that's the whole thing, the 4 nations, right? And same thing with Quinn Hughes.
Practice
he didn't play
Monday.
again last night. Yeah, like Hughes didn't play, so you got Sid, Hughes, and Mitch Marner. Those are 3 monsters, and like Sid's the face of probably the tournament. Wow. One of them.
Actually, you know what? I wouldn't say that to Sid because they're going nowhere. So it's like you go do whatever you want.
Well, that was one of the things I was talking about. Like, it's a bummer for him because this is an opportunity for him to breathe some life into the season. Like, Pittsburgh's not going. If anything, they're going to dismantle more. I think they could be in a situation by the end of the year where they might be tanking. Like, that's kind of scary. Sid hasn't had to deal with that at any point in his career. But it could be a reality based on where Pittsburgh is. And I'm sure Sid was hoping to get there, and let's hope he still is, right? Nothing's been declared on what exactly he's dealing with or if he's going to be out long-term or miss the 4 Nations face-off. But we talked about Nylander. You mentioned Dustin Wolf. I want to play this clip from Willie. It's I love the comment. It's such a swaggy, like, bold.
So it's cocky a comment. I need to hear this because I didn't hear it.
I think it's incredible. This is what Willie had to say about facing Dustin Wolf for the first time.
What do you know about Dustin Wolf? He's a rookie goaltender. Do you know much about him? Do you look into it when you're playing a goalie for the first time?
No, I don't really know anything about him.
And then he was asked to follow up.
Such an arrogant comment.
It is such an arrogant comment. And then he was asked to follow up, which I don't know why we don't have it. Well, are you going to go and look him up? And he said, no, I don't think so. And then he goes and rips home two, and a hat trick with an empty netter like that. That is a bold comment, but he backed it up, and I got to give him credit. That's the beauty of pro sports, man. He looked at him, and he was kind of smirking. He's like, don't really know him, not going to look into him, but he better know who I am tonight. And I guarantee you Dustin Wolf knows who he is now.
Well, I think some of those young players on Calgary, it's like if they probably caught a little bit of a glimpse if they want to be like game breakers and like, you know, in a game where there's not much cooking in the first period and your team stinks, like those guys, like it was John Tavares, it was William Nylander a couple times, Bobby McMahon. But that's why those guys make the kind of dollars that they do. They're game breakers, and they can change the flow of a game in 10 minutes, and all of a sudden, Calgary, it's like game over. So Calgary got a glimpse of those younger guys.
Yeah, I thought it was their top players in Calgary that let them down. I didn't love Kadri's game. I didn't.
They gave up. They were so loose, Jamie. There were too many rush chances, the whole nine.
Well, Tyson Barrie getting walked by Ryan Reeves. I mean, there you go.
Yeah, you don't see that every day. That one hurts. And, really the game kind of closed, too, on the foot of Morgan Frost. That was a tough play in the neutral zone. He got jammed up a little bit, but you got to make that play. Like, you have to. And it went the other way. And Matthews was chugging. He didn't score. He could have had a few last night. And I thought Morgan Riley had himself a big night. Like, I thought Morgan Riley was skating last night. And that has got to be something.
Great game for him.
That continues. He was in the play. He's noticeable. Like, we all know what he brings when he's on his game. He is so noticeable.
Yep.
Where, like, Tanev would be the opposite. You're like, I didn't notice that guy. That means he had a great game. That means no one scored on him. No one danced him. No one pushed him off pucks. If anything, he just blocked every shot and pushed you out and moved the play up. Morgan Riley is a guy to evaluate in the simplest forms. You will notice him when he's playing well, because he's up in the play and he's skating and he's using his ability to really drive plays, which is a rarity in hockey. Like, you don't see it that much from players on the point. You got to really be an uber talent, and he is one. And he just hasn't shown it enough this year, but I thought he was dancing last night. And that was a big, big plus. All right, Chris Pronger coming up. Prongs will join us just after 5. We'll start looking ahead to the Super Bowl, of course. Herm Edwards coming up later this afternoon. We got Dregs on the show with updates on these injuries, right? What's up with Quinn Hughes? What's up with Sidney Crosby? What do we make of Mitch Marner? You know, he could be in the lineup tomorrow in Seattle. Maybe Anthony Stolarz makes his return tomorrow. It sounds like that is certainly a possibility. So we'll get to that and more still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Chris Pronger in just over half an hour. We've got some role play level of concern we'll get to today around 5:30. We have been asking people for the who says no, and some of the options are so outrageous. But it is pretty interesting considering what's going on in the NBA right now, right? Like, it does seem like Kevin Durant, his name is out there. Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler is going to get dealt. Like, it feels like that's a reality in the NBA all the time. Who says no to almost every trade?
I read an interesting who says no, Hazy, and it was this. You get my alumni jacket, Noodles gets your lasagna recipe, and I get Strutty as a best friend.
Oh, what a great, great question. Who says no?
Who says no first? I got to be honest, I think it's me. Because Noodles gets the delicious lasagna recipe.
Yes.
You get a Leafs alumni jacket that is so outrageous.
Is it tailored to the appropriate size? Like, which
can be.
That's an important thing here, man. I want to be able to wear that thing. And do I get access to the alumni box? If so, I'm saying yes to that immediately.
I know,
right?
But so those are the options. Delicious recipe, an unbelievable jacket that has incredible openings for you, like fringe
Icebreaker
benefits
galore.
from the. Oh yeah, and I get Struddy as a best friend. It's got to be me that says no to this.
I think so. As much as we all love he'd be a great best friend. But he lives in Edmonton, right? There's just not going to be a connection for you. I don't think he golfs. Like, I don't know if it's going to work for you.
I know he sells weird stuff. Like
Facebook Marketplace is really
imagine
an
a text
part
at
for
11 p.m. You up ? And then a picture of a frame or something where he's like, any interest? I would just be like, no,
can't do that. Bestie, no. BFFF, best friends forever on Facebook. That would be you and Struddy on the Marketplace out in Edmonton. Yeah, I think you would say no. I would love the alumni jacket. I'd love to wear it around there just to see what the reaction would be.
And I know Noodles would love the
lasagna. He devoured the lasagna. He's got the palate of a 5-year-old, and my lasagna is generally tailored for young people, right? It's just you've had it, you know what it's about. So yeah, I think you would say no. And we've seen a variety of different ones come in, like legitimate trades that could possibly happen, and then pie in the sky stuff, which I kind of love more.
I like pie in the sky too, but I will say one observation about some of the ones that I looked at, Hayes. They're holding this Dylan Cozens on the highest regard. Like it's just, I'm like, is this guy Cale Makar or something I'm missing here? Like he hasn't exactly been dialed in offensively.
Right. Well, and the reports are out there. The insiders are reporting it. I think Pierre LeBrun's been pretty adamant about that, and others, that Cozens is either available or teams believe he's available, and they're making calls. So maybe it's one and the same. And I think there could be a Jack Eichel element to this. Not that he's Eichel, not that he matches the hype of Eichel. But you could use Eichel, you could use Reinhart, you could use O'Reilly. I wouldn't be surprised if other teams circle the Sabres and think, I get that guy out of there, and I can unleash a completely different player. And he's got some size, he's got some ability. I hear you. He's not a superstar.
That's an excellent point. Maybe it's like not so much about it's about the player.
You have to know who the player is.
It's the extraction and what can happen once he leaves there, possibly.
Exactly.
That's a scary thing for an organization if that's a thought process.
Well, that's the reputation, man. That's the reputation, because I just gave you 3 examples. And I guess you could use Ullmark to an extent as well. Like Linus
Damn right
Ullmark,
you can.
Yeah, you can. These guys won a Vezina when he left Buffalo. There's 4 guys. Ullmark, O'Reilly, Reinhart, Eichel. They all left. 3 of them won a cup. The other one won a Vezina on the greatest regular season team in history. Yeah. And they're all good players. They were all good players prior to that. Like O'Reilly was good in Colorado before he got to Buffalo. Reinhart, it's all he knew, though. Eichel, it's all he knew. Ullmark, for the most part, that's all he knew. Cozens, this is all he knows. Yeah. He's not an old. He's 23 years old. I'm looking at his stats. He topped out in 22-23. Had 31 goals, 68 points. Like that's a good player, man. Right? He's a big boy. 6'3", 210. I could see why teams would be circling him, thinking we can do this again to Buffalo.
But the thing is, for the Buffalo Sabres, he plays center ice.
Yeah.
And he's the workhorse from Whitehorse, and I watched him play in the World Juniors. And maybe he turns his game around in Buffalo, but he plays center ice. Jack Eichel has exited stage left in Buffalo as a centerman. I don't even think their best player, Tage Thompson, is a centerman. I think he's a big scoring winger with an incredible shot. I don't see him as a center iceman. Mm-hmm. I think he was a winger, and when he got to Buffalo, they said try center. I don't know the backstory on that, but when I watch him play, I'm like, I really don't know if that guy's a center iceman. So your best player is a center iceman, who I don't think should be playing there. And then your second line guy, Dylan Cozens, it's like you're going to move him out of town. What on earth, if you think you're going to do anything next year, is up the middle of the ice?
Well,
tell me that.
That's what doesn't make sense to me. Like, unless there's something that we're not aware of, something that they've labeled behind the scenes, man. Or there's a work ethic issue. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the reasoning would be on why a team that is perpetually awful and out of it would trade a 23-year-old center with size who has scored 30 already in the league. Like maybe it's not your best players always. It's the other guys. It's the lack of depth. It's, the system, the culture, ownership, and what they do in terms of building up the Buffalo Sabres. Because, and maybe it's also gun shy and understanding that if it keeps going south, at some point these guys are going to say, I got to get out of here. And it is the worst possible cycle in sports, the one that the Buffalo Sabres are currently in.
Yes.
It's just every single year they lose, every single year it's disappointment, and there's never a light at the end of the tunnel. And it's not even close right now.
It's a crazy cycle that they haven't. I think they had some mojo cooking. Maybe it was it last year where they started cooking a little bit and then it just fizzled out. But
in the last couple of years, they had that. I think it was Granato. Maybe that was their coach at one point.
Yeah, and they had a bit of a, they had a bit of a run, but they fizzled out and they couldn't get in. And then it was like, I don't know. It's a crazy juju they got going there because who the hell wants to be involved with that?
Well, and that's
Kevin Adams is a friend of mine. I can't imagine. He's a really competitive guy. He's a smart guy. I can't imagine what he thinks watching that some nights.
Well, and this is what makes it so difficult is. You look at the players on the whiteboard, and you can go through it and say, I like that guy, I like that guy, I like that guy.
All of them together, no likey.
Exactly, and obviously it doesn't work. But like Tage Thompson is a guy. Like a few years ago, the guy was one of the 10 best players in the league. Like that's how good he was the year he put up.
I know.
And last year it fell off a bit. This year he's been about a point a game. Peterka's pretty good. You've committed to Dahlin. You've committed to Owen Power. Those are 2 first overall pick defensemen that are supposed to be cornerstones for your team.
I think
one
of them makes 11.5.
He does,
one makes 8,
and he's your captain now. Like Dahlin's your guy.
I get it, but how come you don't watch any nights and it's like, man, that guy Dahlin was all over the ice and dominated the game? I don't see that very often.
No, and that's the question, man. That like. You get the first overall pick. What is it going to be? What is it going to turn into be?
When he says you're going to pay me 11 or I'm leaving, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
If you pay him the 11, you're going to sit and watch it, and it's like, wow. Even the power kid, sweetheart of a kid, big time potential, but what's it, year 3 for him?
Yeah, it doesn't scream first overall pick.
No,
in terms of
it's got to get better. It's got to get more consistent. It's got to be more impactful on a night-to-night basis. And all these guys are like, I never want to hear the excuse of, well, look at the kid's age. He's 20. Who cares? You wanted the money at that age, so you better play good at that age.
Well, and especially there's different levels of expectation and different levels of hype. If you go first overall, you're expected to step in and play. It's not guaranteed. No one's suggesting you have to immediately be mature and be a man and be a leader and dominate. But you've got to show flashes, and you've got to continue to grow as every single game goes on and every season goes on.
Yeah.
And that's an issue they're running into. Is they've got these guys first overall in Dahlin, first overall in Power, other guys who have been top 10 picks, and none of them look as if they're going to be superstars. And maybe you got to give them more time. And again, it's not just that. Clearly, it's more than that. It's depth. It is selling people on coming to your market or selling guys on staying in your market. But it's just this perpetual cycle that is sickening down in Buffalo. And now they've got this reputation of being soft. And last night off the draw, some guy has to fight Olivier to prove that we're tough now. Right, and we're not going to deal with this anymore.
I thought that was so amateur hour. Like
Dennis Gilbert was his name. He's a Buffalo guy.
I understand it was Gilbert, but it was like the last game was the mishap.
Right,
and the fact that you had to have a meeting to say. The Leafs had the same meeting a couple of years ago where it was like, that's not happening again. I think it was...
After Liljegren and Marchand, I think it was.
Yeah, Marchand went into the corner and Liljegren blew out his ankle or knee or something, and it was like, yeah, we talked about that, and that's never happening again. No one's, like, not standing up for a teammate. It's like, if you're in that spot where you have to have that meeting, you're in big-time trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very predictable that the next game, even though it's got no connection to New Jersey.
The next game? Like, you got to go out there and who were you doing that for?
Well,
who was it for? Was it for the fans?
I guess. I guess maybe for the room, like someone's going to just fight. And I guess I credit Olivier, and I felt for the Sabre because he was getting. Olivier is one of the 3 or 4 toughest guys in the league. Like, he throws cinder blocks. He is a monster, and Gilbert had to go out and fight him. And I'm guessing it was an old school Evison, Lindy Ruff, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm starting this guy, you start that guy, because why would they be even starting the game? Like with all due respect, it's a big game for Columbus. Buffalo's trying to figure it out. You got two guys who are going to go out there and pre-plan a fight. It almost was as if both teams were in on it, and it was understood it was coming.
Crazy stuff.
But it doesn't resolve anything. And yet, in reality, there was probably nothing they could do to resolve what had already happened. Right? Noason had got Thompson. There was still a lot of time left in that game. No one did anything. It was very predictable the Sabres were going to have to come out and try to prove we learned from this. We're not going to do it again. But we'll see what happens in the future. We'll see what it actually means in the future. And that's the worst part. You referenced the Leafs. At least the Leafs were a playoff team and had all this other goodwill that was coming with them. And
if you got all that and your garbage,
it's a mess. It's a mess, man. I feel for Sabre fans, and that's the worst position you can be in if you're a fan, that other fans pity you. It's the most insulting position you could ever be in, where it's like I feel really bad for you that your team stinks all the time. But that's where the Buffalo Sabres currently reside. All right, we got a role play level of concern coming up. Chris Pronger in about 20 minutes. And Dregs is on the show today. Herm Edwards on the show today. We will sneak in some Who Says No's. All right, we will sneak in a few throughout the afternoon. We'll kind of bring them in and bring them out, and we'll see where we reside on all that. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Chris Pronger coming up in about 25 minutes. Role play level of concern at 5:30. And a lot of games in the NHL last night. Ottawa, you were calling that game, Noodles. Yeah. They finally ran out of steam, but they almost had it at the end, man. It was a good game.
Oh, we had Vasilevsky made 5 saves in 23 seconds in this sequence, and it was, Jonas would have been proud, put it that way. Old Jonas might have drag bunted him right in the yap.
Yeah, he could have. It's a one-off, according to Jonas. It's a one-off.
Yeah. No, honestly, it was a good game, and you're right. Like, Tampa needed it. They've been kind of in the ditch a little bit. They had won 2 of their last 7. So now they've got 4 games in a row against Atlantic Division opponents. And we ran a board last night, which is interesting. I believe the Leafs were 11-5 against Atlantic opponents. Tampa was 3-9. So that's something they got to change if they're going to want to make a playoff spot and make a big push there. So, they're treating this. They've got Ottawa tomorrow. I believe they've got Detroit. And who else am I missing there? There's one in Florida, I think, before they've got the 4 nations. So it's they got 4 in a row against Atlantic teams. So they're
here's a who says no
playoff
for you guys. If Jerry Bettman sat down in a room with Chris Drury and Brisebois, said, of you two, both of you, better cause some havoc in the playoffs, because we want you to cause havoc in the playoffs. Who says no to that?
So New York Rangers or Tampa Bay Lightning?
Both of them got to make hay, but one team's going to say, I don't know. They got to say no. I don't know if we can do it.
That's a good one, man. Which one is willing to be honest and look at themselves and say? I think it would have to be Drury right now in the Rangers. I think because they've just had a tougher run, and they haven't won anything before. Yeah. They've been in conference finals, and they've
I know. As much as the positive moments have happened for the Rangers, like, they're a bad week away from saying, like, that's it, guys. Sorry.
Right.
Like, you're not coming out of it.
Put that board up again. Aren't they, what are they, 6 points out?
And they got to jump over like 5 teams, too, Noodles. Yeah. Like, the Rangers are way back.
And the biggest challenge is you're playing against each other. I still think the scary part is if they do sneak in, they could be one of those, not Cinderella stories because they won the President's Trophy, but they could be. That's not a traditional 8, if that makes sense. Like, that would be a scary 8.
That would be. That would be right up the Leafs' alley if they won the division. The Rangers would be 8.
Waiting for you, Shesterkin staring there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know what. I'm just trying to read them. 54-60. Yeah, so you're 6 points back. No games in hand, and you got to jump all these other teams. Now Columbus, I think I think they're a team that the injuries might catch up. But that being said, the game I called last night, guys, Nick Paul left on Tampa's side, and Shane Pinto got hurt. So I don't know the status there. So now Ottawa potentially could be going into tomorrow's game without Josh Norris and Shane Pinto down the middle of the ice.
I think, guys, you're seeing, we talked about last week sports science and how I think it's quite crazy how these guys think they're smarty pants. You're looking at a league that have said to these guys, we're having this Four Nations thing, and we're going to shove a bunch of games at you down your throat. And that's why you're seeing guys going down right now. Like, the amount of games teams are playing, it's ridiculous. Like, if you go through Ottawa's schedule the last 2 months, it's been insane. You throw in the World Juniors and the travel and out west and back. Like, it's just it seems worse than ever. That's why guys are going down.
And everybody, you can't make excuses, but
you can't.
But I was chatting with Pooley yesterday morning, and I said to him, I said, what time do you get in? He's like, they went to bed at 2 a.m. Like, they played in Nashville the night before, and luckily it was a 6:30 local, so that's a 7:30 Eastern game. But then you got afterwards, you jump on the plane, like you get in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you got Tampa waiting for you, and you're changing time zones. You're losing an hour actually flying out. Like, I get it, and you know what? To his credit, all he said is he goes, hey, everybody gets a piece of that schedule at some point. So you just got to find a way to fight through it. And I thought it was a very, as Pooley is, classy and rational way to look at it is everybody gets a bad piece of schedule at some point. You got to find a way to battle through it and get points at critical times. So listen, they've won 5 in a row. So
that's it. I mean, you're going to lose games, and unless you're Detroit, I guess, who won again last night. And I think the Red Wings are like 15-4-1 with Todd McLellan behind the bench.
Coach here.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. It does feel like Carberry is the guy. How about, we'll get to Ovi in a minute. Ovi with 0.1 on the clock sneaks one in. But that was a great game. And Florida had it, and then Washington said, no dice, we're taking over in the third, and they won that game. But Carberry obviously has been at the top of the list. We mentioned Travis Green earlier this week. If Ottawa gets in, it checks a lot of boxes. But if
I know what you're going to say. If the Red Wings go on a heat skis,
listen, man, they were dead in the water. Like they were out of it. Yeah. That's what's scary about this. We've been doing a lot of scoreboard watching because it's reasonable. Last night, Ottawa finally loses a game. Tampa wins, Boston wins, Detroit wins, Montreal wins. Like Montreal feels like they're obviously behind the pack, and I think they're in real trouble in terms of actually making the playoffs. But still, you've got legitimately 6 teams in the Atlantic, and there's only 5 that can make it, right? Because of the wild cards. Like, what would be crazy is if we went back to the East-West 1 through 8, you might have 6 teams from the division make it. Wow. Like it's possible that Jersey maybe would get caught by one of these teams. It's doubtful, but that's how good it's been, and that's how good these teams have been. And you're right, about all these injuries and the amount of games that are being played. And I think it's even more highlighted with the best players because they're playing the most minutes. And they're under attack every night because the opponents are like, you got to hit them, you got to smack them, you got to cross-check them, you got to slash them. And, like, news came out today, I guess this hour, that Quinn Hughes is not traveling with the team. I think they're on the way to San Jose, Vancouver. He's not even he's not playing. He didn't skate today with the team or on his own. Like, he's missed the last 2 games. He's in one right now. Like, Quinn Hughes is in one right now.
Yeah, how could he, like, with a straight face, just Monday morning say, I'm going to fire up for the USA, guys. Nothing to see here. Like,
that's going to be a massive topic, man, over the next 5 days. Massive topic.
Because if you're Jimmy Rutherford or Rick Tocchet, you're like, dude, if they win in San Jose, they're like, we're on a bit of a heater now, and we're in crunch time. We need you to be 100% when this thing fires up again.
They're tied with Calgary. Like that spots. Like you're right. You bring up the owner. Like let's point this out. You make the playoffs. There's guaranteed 2 home dates. That's millions of dollars for your owner. And the owner is saying, I'm paying you how much to play for my team? Like this, let's just take the emotion out of it. Put your business hat on. You need Quinn Hughes to try and help you to make the playoffs. So you do what's best for the team. Obviously, you do the player wants what's best for the team, but he also wants a little piece of that. But if Quinn Hughes is missing games and all of a sudden he's going to be available to play in the Four Nations, that's tough. Unless we don't know the nature of the injury. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, teams are just never going to allude to what's actually going on. But it is circumstantial. Like Sidney Crosby, he got banged up last night. He's being evaluated today. Pittsburgh's desperate, but I think they're reasonable. I would like to believe they're reasonable, that they're not making the playoffs. Like, the Penguins are not going to make the playoffs, and Sid's a big boy, and he's done a lot for that organization, and it might be one of his last big hurrahs for Canada. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe he looks at it and says, like, he is a freak of nature, Sid, and he's a competitor. Yeah. He may look at it and say, I can't play at the Four Nations because I got to be ready for Pitt because we can still do this. I think that would be a delusional opinion.
Dude, he ain't saying that.
It would be delusional, but you never know. I mean, you know how competitive guys are, right? Like, Brady was down 28-3 and yelling at people, like, let's go, let's go, let's go. The best of the best have kind of freakish expectations. Yeah. But Vancouver, you could not come up with a more carbon copy, wow, this is daunting scenario in the league than their clear-cut best player, their captain, the guy who plays more minutes and is more important than anyone else on a team that is hovering around the playoffs, and also matches with, like, another thing with Sid, and I know I'm rambling here, is he's played for Canada before. Like, he could do the Pietrangelo and say, I'm actually ailing now, and I've been there, I've done it. Let someone else do it. I'll see you in 2026. Quinn Hughes has never done it, never played for the Americans, and he's going to be their number one guy. Like, that's another thing. If you're Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet, do you trust that the American team isn't going to play him 30 minutes a night? I wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, because if he's healthy, that's probably what he's going to do.
Well, on that roster with that decor, I don't know if you need to blow him out.
Maybe not 30, but he's the man, dude. He's their best defender.
He's the man on any decor he steps on.
Absolutely.
That's the fact.
So what are you? And in the heat of competition, he's not going to put his hand up and go, sorry, like, let's just roll six back here. Sorry, you just skip me on this power play or this scenario here. We're playing for, the cup or the what is that? What are they playing for?
It's the Four Nations face-off
cup, right?
Cup.
Like, is it a cup or an
It's
urn
a belt.
or what?
I hope it's a belt.
Wouldn't that be amazing if it was a belt?
That would be so great. They all get to wear the belt for a picture.
A belt.
That'd be outstanding. I want that, or like a hat. It's like a specific type of crown. They should play for a crown. That'd be Four Nations face-off crown. Who gets it?
That would be amazing.
That we should post that up for a poll. What would be the most ridiculous possible trophy for them to hand out at the Four Nations face-off?
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
A lot going on in the league, man. A lot going on. And again, with Sid being evaluated, it would suck if he's not there. But if he does have to pull out, does McDavid just naturally get handed the captaincy? It seems like it, right? You just probably be a formality.
The same thing's going to happen in Toronto. Marner, like, if Marner doesn't play in Vancouver, the same thing's going to come up.
Yeah,
like,
that's coming too.
You're going to Monday. You're practicing with another team, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is. You got to do what's best for your organization and yourself. Now, maybe Mitch is just a little nicked up and it's fine and he can play. But you'd have to sit there if Sid and Marner are question marks. Like, is that Zach Hyman going, waiting by his phone type of thing? Like,
but the GM's got to be thinking, how come Pietrangelo's nicked up and he said, I got to withdraw my name because I got to get better during the break. But the one thing I do love is that people really want to play for their country. I do have a ton of respect to that. Hayes, you've mentioned it a bunch over the last several years. We haven't seen this. We haven't seen a team with McDavid and McKinnon and Crosby. Yeah. And this is going to be the first sniff, regardless of how many teams or who's there. It's the first chance they're going to do it. And they all want to partake. What the intensity level is going to be another question. Like, that first period of the first game will be very telling of what we're in for.
Big time.
You know what's funny, though? I've been sniffing around a little bit, talking to guys and that. It sounds like it's like guys are taking it quite seriously. I don't think it's, hey, we're going to a vacation in Montreal, Boston type of thing. Like, they're taking it seriously. That's the way I look at it, which is a good sign.
I think the true indicator could be Montreal at night. That actually might be the true indicator of how seriously we're taking things.
Dude, I've heard that, Hayes. Like, it's like, you got to come over here. We got to try to win gold at the World Championships. And you hear stories about guys going over there, and they're absolutely creamed every night till 5 a.m. And it's like, how badly did everybody want to win the gold medal over there?
I told you the story. My buddy played for the U.S. team, and they brought one of his teammates home in one of those valet carts from the hotel. They had to go to the hotel, get one of those carts, take it to the bar, and put a dead body in it and wheel it home. And they played at 1 o'clock the next day, 1 p.m. Like, it just... they go and enjoy themselves.
That's the point. Would they like to win? Sure. Are they obsessed with winning? No. You go to the Olympic Games, you're going to bed at 10 p.m. It's like the Stanley Cup final. But
I've heard some stories about that, too.
I have, too, and I've heard it specifically from teams that didn't do so well. But I'm sure there's teams that did well that actually had a very good time as well. But
yeah, if I'm going there on a team that has no chance to medal at the Olympics, at 3 a.m, I'll be going down the luge sled.
Yes. Sans.
Yeah, naked. I'll be naked luging at 4 a.m.
That guy plays for Czechia, I think.
And he's on the skeleton right now.
That's the captain of the German team.
Yeah.
Look at this guy. Yeah, that is very valid. And also, we've heard great stories about the Olympic Village, where if you know you're out of it and it's a participation badge, you are having a great time.
Yeah, I would just bring a plastic chair to the Canadian fridge. They had a thing that opened up. If you just throw your passport and beers come out of it.
That's the thing, though. Apparently, it had a marker. You had to put your passport in, so they knew how many times your passport had been scanned.
It was a trick.
Oh,
They're like,
no.
look at this guy. Yeah. This guy has been here every hour on the hour with that passport.
Yeah, there's analytics of his passport going through there. It's
absolutely. But that would be very enticing. Very, very enticing. All right, Chris Pronger, role play level of concern coming up in hour 2. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.